Show me let me. Okay, I got a message. Okay, guys, so we could begin. So good afternoon, each and every one of you. Thank you all for coming to the Rotary Club of Penal's second mental health webinar. This is part of our mental health awareness campaign. Our webinar today is on men's mental health. My name is Kirsten Nanan. I am the Vice President of the Rotary Club of Penal, and I'll be your host for tonight. We have an amazing guest speaker tonight, and I can't wait for us to begin. So Sudarshan or Adana, can we share the screen? It's shared already? Okay, you can go to the next slide.
1 second, Teresa, the live is on.
Thank you.
Welcome.
You can go to the next slide. Okay, so we have a small itinerary. You can go back right before. The one before that. Okay, so we will have the four-way test being done by Kirsten Nanan. We'll have an introduction of our guest speaker, Mr. Hanif Benjamin, and we'll have our presentation, and then we'll have a small closing remark by our ADRR, Ms. Chanel Thompson. So I'll now pass the mic over to Kirsten, who will begin with the four-way test.
Good night, everyone. My name is Kirsten Anand, and I will now recite the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. The first one is it the truth? The second is it fair to all concerned? The third is, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And the fourth one is, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you so much. So now I'll be introducing our guest speaker, and I'm so excited. So our guest speaker today is Mr. Hanif Benjamin. He is a clinical traumatologist specializing in the areas of family and group therapy, clinical and social consultancy, youth development, and clinical traumatology. He is a licensed Master of Social Work by the New York State of Professions and a member of the American Academy of Experts in Traumatic Stress and the National Center for Crisis Management. He is the founder, president, and CEO of the Center for Human Development Limited, and you can check out his website for all the services, information, resources, and his credentials. So, Mr. Benjamin, I'm now passing the mic to you. You can conduct the webinar in any way or form you like. If you'd like to, have it interactive or lecture-based, and then questions and answers at the end. So, Mr. Benjamin.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nanan, for having me. Thank you so much to the Rotary Club of Penal, to the president, you, the vice president, and all executive members, and to all persons listening, viewing throughout the world. It is indeed a pleasure to be here with you on this Sunday evening, no doubt, as we talk about this very important topic of men health, which in my view includes all health, mental and physical health. And the reason why I decided to throw that in there, because there is always a distinction between men's or mental health and physical health. And so I want to say from the jump that there is no health without mental health. Period. There is no physical health, once there is no mental health, there is no health, because the two work very interchangeably, whereas one is always impacting or reverberating around the other. For example, for those of you who are doctors here, you may have had clients that you would have run every test known to man and could not find a medical issue, but you send them to the psychologist or to the psychiatrist, and here we go, depression, anxiety, which may have caused some physiological symptoms, for example, the back, the head, the shoulder, the foot hurting, you see? And so when you consider the overall health of people, you must consider how mental health works with and along physical health and vice versa. And so if I were to ask you to tell me in brief your own definition of what you consider to be men's health, anybody, what you consider to be men's health, I'll take two responses. I wonder if you have a shy bunch tonight.
Hi, I'll say it's your state of mind.
Okay, I like that, a state of mind. I see a hand up.
Hi, that's me. I think it's a holistic type of health where it's emotional, mental, psychological, and social well-being.
All right, well done, well done, well done. Anybody else wanted to jump in? Just one more, anybody else? So go ahead for me.
The ability to control your internal environment in terms of mentally.
All right, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Rice. I like that one. Go ahead, Mr. Rice.
I agree with the holistic health. It's not only about the mind, but it's for instance, prostate, every single thing that has to do with the male human body, yeah, that's all is mind, yeah.
And so thank you so much for that. And so when you look at the entire tapestry of health, you're talking about body, mind, spirit. And so once one of those things are out of equilibrium, you find that everything else tends to fall apart. Sometimes we're not sure what exactly is going on because we are always focusing in the main on our physical health. And sometimes we take in sick leave, sometimes we're at home, and it's not because we had a common cold, or because we have a fever, but sometimes we just don't know, I just have feeling it. You ever had that? I have feeling it today. And so your partner, your wife, your son, your daughter, say, what's going on? I don't know, I just have feeling it today. Anybody ever had a I have feeling it today vibes?
Yes.
Right? And so when you consider that constant feeling of unwell that is not able to explain, we can rest assured that the equilibrium is not working. Something somewhere is not happening. And so it is important for us to begin to understand the whole thing about men and health. And I cannot help but start exactly where? At the beginning. Why do I want to start at the beginning? Because it's not just us in here, grown men and health. You see, we have to consider what does it mean from the beginning to now. For example, what exactly is going on when we talk about boys? Because the whole notion of taking care of oneself is not a today thing. It started way back when the boys were allowed to roam, bust your toe, fall down, but you couldn't cry. So you had to take on a rough demeanor. You see, where we were told that it is not good to show emotions and all of these things as boys. And so we grew up knowing that we really are going to a doctor. You go and you put your toe under some running water and you wrap it up and you keep it moving. So from a very early age, we were not encouraged to go by a doctor, to engage with a healthcare professional when we feel sick. For men, you almost have to be to the point of dead or dying before they could pry you out of the house to take you to a doctor. Sometimes you have to go to ultimatum you have to go to the doctor or else. Because from a young boy, we were taught that those things are for girls. Those things are not for rough men. We go through it. We experience it. We live through it. We survive it. And so as we continue to grow, we grow with that perception. For the doctors here again, the question as to even when a man has his first, that kind of examination that we don't like. They say that you need to get it as you reach age 40 coming on the road. But then we don't want to go, we don't want to do, but the women go in and get a pap smear, they get this every year. But again, a man only when something is absolutely wrong, that is when we go to seek medical attention. So let me come to the mental health aspect of this. Because Jeffrey Canada, the founder of the Harlem Children's Zone in New York, spoke about the man box. The man box. And when he spoke about the man box, he put it in the perspective that society has taken boys and men and placed us in a box where they told us who we should become, how we should behave, how we should react, and how we should interact with people. And so they told us from very young that boys should behave in a particular manner, they should interact in a particular manner, and anything outside of that is contravening societal norms. And therefore, we grew up with that perspective. And so when you talk about attachment, a relationship growing up, that has been an issue. When you talk about physical health, the body, the brain, that would have been an issue. When we talk about our emotional responses to situation, that would have been an issue. When we talk about overall behavior, that would have been an issue. And unfortunately, that then led to long-term health consequences, including and in so much as our mental health. Because we couldn't form strong bonds as boys growing up, even with our fathers, because that is not how our fathers were taught to raise boys. Our fathers said you had to be rough and tough. As a matter of fact, what you learned from our fathers would have been they go out to work and they provide the money and that's it. No emotional support was given to us. The emotional support that we learned would have come sometimes or most times from our mothers. From our mothers. However, I am one who believes that there are things that a woman cannot teach a man, and there are things that a man cannot teach a girl. And those are indisputable research. So when you have one side of the attachment happening and one side is absent, even though they are present, because a lot of time people think about this absent father as someone who is outside of the home. And I said, if you look at the Caribbean diaspora, an absent father is not always one who is absent of the house, but the man who is always busy doing what society told him he should do, go out there and work and bring home the bacon. And so when you come home, you're too tired to engage emotionally with your child or children and your family. And so you're never going to the school, right, for parent teachers or whatever, is mommy always going? Yeah, you're not going to take the son or your daughter to whatever game because mommy going, because we are doing what society told us we should do. And so the attachment from early created major, major, major challenges. And so when you talk about the physical health, the body and the brain, we really didn't put emphasis on that. We really did not put emphasis on that. But the biggest one here is our emotional response growing up. The challenges we face as emotional children or children who lack the level of emotional awareness. I call it emotional illiteracy. How do you deal with emotional challenges? If I were to do a poll with all the men in the group now, and I ask them about their emotional intelligence, most will tell me that we're lacking that still. And it is for those reasons men refuse to talk about mental illnesses. Men refuse to talk about how they feel. Even in this pandemic, men suffer in silence because the space that is needed to have this conversation is not there. And so when you look at how we were trained as children in relation to our traumas, to our life experiences, and that in relation to our emotion, we are now trying to figure that out. And so the unfortunate fact is that for all of our life, we grew up without a level of emotional connectivity. And then somewhere along the line, when you get to 18, 19, 20, you pick up your partner, everybody wants you to be emotional. They want you to come and sit and cry with us. Nobody taught us to cry. Nobody told us that we should cry or shed a tear. No, you're a sissy. when you cry as a child. You're good when you cried as a child. That is what society told us. So now as a grown man, they want you to be emotional. They want you to cry. And when you say to them, well, I processing my trauma, you know, but how you processing that trauma and you are crying? Because I don't know how to shed a tear. So we have abandoned our emotional responses in relation to what we're going to do now. Now, listen to this. When it comes to behavior, which impacts our health again, the way we grew up, the way we were told to behave, the machismo, what a man should be like. Again, if I ask you, what do you consider to be a man? Everybody will tell me the He-Man toy we used to play with or the Superman toy we used to play with, because that is who represented a man, some strong, buff, hero kind of circumstances. And so I think it was important for me to go back to the beginning to lay the foundation as to why we have what we have today. Because fixing this, ladies and gentlemen, will not be an immediate thing. We have to look at it from a longitudinal perspective. We have to look at the way we train our boys right now. We have to look at our teenagers right now. And we have to look at us, the grown men right now, to see how are we impacting those who are coming up behind us. Because the cycle continues based on the way you were introduced to life, the way you were living your life. And so you are teaching your son that way. How many of us still have the blue for boys and the pink for girls? How many of us will not depart from that? How many of us still on the big truck and the dumb truck? Those are the things that we tell our boys that they should aspire to, and not understanding the long-term health implication. Because when you get older now and you are carrying out those teachings from a boy, we end up in health problems. And I will tell you why we end up in health problems. Let me make the linkages for you very early in this conversation. The man who seldom takes care of his mental health or physical health end up even more sick. End up with a lot of negative coping mechanisms. For example, when you have an inability to speak about your emotions, we tend to find an outlet to let it out, or an outlet finds us. Because sometimes the way we cope with our own life stressors, our mental health challenges, is what I call feel good. In Trinidad and Tobago, we like to feel good. Let me just put a plug here, because I am one who firmly believes that that study that said that Trinidad is one of the happiest places on earth is a misinformed study. And I want to challenge anybody on that study. What that study represents is that we use these things as coping mechanisms for our difficulties. So when we drink rum, we feel good, feel good. When we feel good, we want to feel more good. So we buy more rum. The reason why our weekends are now 7 days a week, right? I think it was VJ talk about he will Friday come back soon again, earlier. Now you don't have to wait for Friday, VJ, because any day of the week now is a weekend, based on our standard of coping. So what we have done as men is find unhealthy ways to cope with the stressors of life. So as a child, we were told we should hold our emotion. We should not speak about how we feel. We should not go to no doctor when we are ill. And so now that manifests itself as an adult. So now as an adult, we are unable to speak about our feelings. So what we do, we drink about it, we smoke about it, we have crazy, risky sexual behaviors about it. And so many other unhealthy coping mechanisms so that it can help us feel good. Because to sit and have a conversation about, here now, darling, this man giving me real pressure on work and I feeling this way. Or here what, because of COVID-19 and the hours were cut on work, I feeling this way. We are not going to have those conversations. And so what is happening here is that we develop a sense of all these other things. And what these things lead to is lifestyle diseases. So now, because we feeling good, we drinking, so we have liver problem, sugar problem, high blood pressure problem, weight problem, every other kind of problem. Because we have not dealt with our mental health, and so we are finding an alternative to treat with it, which is in turn killing us. I'll pause at this point for a question or two, or a comment or two.
Just a comment. I am looking at as a man, looking at the audience we have here and trying to gauge in terms of the male to female ratio. And that in itself says something, so it just backs up what you're saying in terms of males seeing some kind of the headline with this and probably, hey, I don't need this. So just that in itself just kind of supports as to what you're saying.
That is powerful because, again, the men are going to come to hear about no mental health. What kind of trippiness you all are talking about? That's what men will say. What kind of trippiness are they talking about? Mental health? Where is that? All they need to get tough. All they need to get rough all about mental health. You see me? And so what I have learned is I welcome the females because the female have an uncanny ability to persuade men. That's just what it is. So if we could give them the information, maybe they can still influence people in their circle so that we could bring about the change that we need. Because you see, I cannot wait to have an audience just for men. So we have to do what we need to do so that we can spread the information. Anybody else have a comment or so?
I have a comment.
Yes.
More so a concern. Seeing that we have had, I would say, centuries and centuries of this mentality, how are we even going to begin to unlearn this norm that we have, that men should be a particular way? Especially in Trinidad, especially in rural areas of Trinidad, they would see men having that particular macho man or a hegemonic masculine persona. How are we going to address that now with people who are older, with men in their 30s, with men in their 20s? It's still easy for young, I wouldn't say easy, but it's still pretty lack of better words, easy to address young children or even teenagers. But what about our older generation of men who are already in this cycle?
Powerful question. Earlier, I spoke about the continuum. Yeah? We have to understand that if we want change to occur, our elder need to change their perspective and begin to teach. Those of us who are in the middle, what I'm going to call us the full adults, we need to begin to see things differently so that we could help the earlier end of the spectrum, our children, to change. Now, Carissa, we are responsible for what we are today. Because it is us, you and I, we teach our boys what they should become. We, you and I, teach our girls who they should become. So in order for us to change this perspective, we must now change our approach. We must now change how we interact with our children so that that generation can change their outlook. We could change our outlook. But let me tell you something, and a little vexed with me, especially those of us who are in the winter of our years on this thing here tonight. A little vexed with me, but I kind of set in all the ways. All I kind of set in all the ways. And right now, even now I have clients where the problem is that the daughter is saying to her mother, do not discipline my child or do not interact with my child like that. Because I no longer want my child to be like how you were back in the 80s, 70s, 60s. So it's bacchanal. Because they're set in the ways. So it is important for us to understand that a new paradigm, a new way of thinking must begin. Go ahead for me, is Gideon?
Hi. Yes, I know that your answer that you just gave might feed into this, but I was just wondering in terms of Trinidad and how our culture, we're very free, we're very light-spirited and stuff. So I think we might end up coping with trauma with humor and with just trying to live life. It is what it is, and just enjoying life. And then Daniel just posted a comment about you just need to get out of it and you just need to snap out of it, right? How do you navigate having a culture where we do like to enjoy life and we do like to enjoy humor and see the bright side of things, I guess? I don't know how to say it, but how do you navigate not wanting to move away from being light-spirited and enjoying the comedy of things, but also not disregarding the actual trauma?
So the first thing I want to say is this: that statement, we had to snap out of it, is the problem. That is the crux of the problem, because we do not identify the trauma or the mental health issue, and we do not give it the prominence that it deserves. We cannot snap out of a broken leg, can we? We cannot snap out of something going on in your heart. We cannot snap out of an aneurysm. So why do we think that we can snap out of our trauma or mental health? That is the problem. It is not about snapping out, but rather it is about understanding what it is and treating it for what it is, processing it, and getting the help that is necessary. That is what we need to do. The problem here, also that you spoke about, is that humor. That is part of the feel-good thing. That is part of what we use to feel good. But we can't laugh our issues away. Here what's going on. If pillow could speak, what would it say? If your pillow could speak, what would it say? When you're done laugh and you cry laughing and you go home and lie down in the night and the tears start to run down your head because the same problem persists, what would your pillow say? So while I understand that it is important for us to de-stress, that is very different from treating with your trauma, from treating with your mental health challenges. You have to see it as equal to a medical issue. We wouldn't laugh at cancer. We wouldn't laugh at diabetes. I see a hand up, Ali.
Hi, good night. I just wanted to ask if so we understand that there's a stigma around men that mental illness may not affect them. So for the generation that set in their ways and stuff, right? let's say you have like a family member, a cousin, a friend, and you notice that, from your experience with, depression, anxiety, mental illness, you notice that, they portraying signs like this. How would you suggest or how would you propose to approach, a male counterpart in that manner, to kind of seek help?
That's a powerful question as well. Thank you for that. View men as part of the solution. Let's start there. Let's view men as part of the solution. By allowing them, right? By allowing them the space to express how they feel. One of the greatest challenges we face, Ali, is that we do not allow men to express emotions. We do not allow a safe space for a man to feel. And so it is difficult for a man to come and bear how he feels because of how society, including their own family members, might view them. So if you want to fix this issue in the first instance, we need to make them part of the solution. We need to say to man, you could feel without being judged. Once you begin to do that, you would have leveled the playing field so that man don't feel that this is something outside of the ordinary. We have to make it ordinary. Why a man have to go and drink rum in a rum shop to talk to his partner, but it's really therapy he going there for? Why is that? Allow a man to feel, allow a man to speak, so that when they feel a kind of way, they wouldn't have to crouch it for all kind of excuses. But they could come directly and say, this is how I feel, so that we could figure out how to help them. Because a big part of people not going for help is that they do not understand what is wrong. And if I do not know what is wrong, I cannot fix it. And so it is critical for us to begin there. You need to work with men where they are. Because in some instances, because we were taught so long to bottle up our feelings, we need to meet them right there and help them to bring their feelings out. If men are able to speak more, if men are able to express how they feel more, I guarantee you domestic violence will be declining. I can guarantee you that. Because some of the cases that I intervene with from a domestic violence perspective, it's not always the man. While I will never condone violence in any form or fashion, and I want to make that absolutely clear, as a social scientist, I cannot sit and just say, well, the man beat up the woman, lock him up. Stupidity, foolishness. If we want to fix the situation, we have to be able to understand what is going on in the man's mind, when it is going on, how it is going on, so that that person might be able to get the help that they need to help them through their difficult situation. I see a hand. Oh, my good friend Kenneth, please proceed. Dr. Niles?
I thought I was a good friend, Kenneth. I hear you saying about if men would be allowed to speak. That's fine, but my concern is, and the research is, that who is listening to the man and who's allowing the man to speak? And that's the issue we have, that men are not allowed to speak, or rather women in this case of interpartner violence or any kind of abuse, they are not allowed to give their opinion. Shut up! I don't believe you. You lie. It's a reason. Excuse. So that it's one thing for us to speak, and I agree with that. But we need to have a recalibrating of women's minds to listen to a man's voice and to hear them out, because we have grown up with shut up, go to your room. This is big people talk. And do remember the girls were in the home, making up the bed, being congratulated, being commended, nice bed, nice thing, you clean it. We in the yard, hey, clean the fall cup, clean and as soon as we sweep, as soon as we do the pen, the pick tutu again. If you sweep the yard, the leaf fall again. So we are never complimented, because whatever we do always had that continuum of mess. The only time we got released is by the boys on the corner or with your friends who said, yeah, man, but that was not good enough. So we need to find that space. And I am working on that to help ladies to listen to a man's voice and allow them to be silly, allow them to be free in their articulating, because they need to be heard. Otherwise, we can talk. If you don't hear us, we will repeat, and we become repeat offenders. And this has been going on. I remember when Dr. Phillips I was part of the men's thing, the men's group at the Ministry of Gender Affairs, and they wanted to have a committee full of ladies. I said, excuse me, we are not going to get any rehabilitation if you bring women into a forum where men are trying to say that they have beaten a woman, they have cussed, they have adulterated, they have ate women. When a woman is there, keep telling them, you see how bad it is, I will castrate you. You see you, if you're I will pull your tongue out, you come to kiss me. They will never open up. So we need to address that context of
Yes. I wanted to add one more thing to what you just said there. Because in all of what you said, I heard, even when you give the man the ability to speak, because of what we were told for so long, we may not even know the words to say. And so patience is something that I also want to add in there, to allow our ladies to be patient as the man develop their voice as well.
When you say all ladies, who are you talking about? The mothers?
Just ladies in general.
Oh, ladies. Yeah. Females. Yeah.
So, thank you.
And I think it goes back to daughters. I do remember that even daughters are being socialized not to listen to daddy. Go by your mother. What your mother say? It's actually, it's not, even though mommy will say go to your father, he says go back to your mother, because at the end of the day, wait till the child, you disagree with me? So it ends up again as a one-sided gender context.
Always. Thank you. I see Melville, then I see Mitchell, then I see Daniel.
Right. Good night, everybody. One thing I'm glad about is that we can begin by having more of these forums where we focus on the mental health of men, which is very good. In addition to that, I think what we need to do is not only look at it from, in terms of mental health, not only look at it from a man's point of view, but from a national point of view, because I think whenever we talk about mental health, there is a taboo that is attached to it, because the first thing people start to think is that you're probably mad.
Correct.
So the whole idea of even accessing, as you mentioned earlier, as you would normally go to a doctor if anything is physically wrong with you. If it is that you dare say that I'm going to a psychologist or I'm going to a psychiatrist, you are put in a certain category, and therefore we don't want to be deemed mad. We don't want to be called something is wrong in your head. So therefore we have to be able to allow mental health issues or people who seek in mental health, if they have mental health challenges, to allow them to know it is okay. It is okay to have an issue. It is okay to be able to say, listen, I feel I need help. And from there now, we can now continue in targeting the men and allow men to realize that, listen, there's nothing wrong in you saying, listen, I don't feel I can handle the situation. No, I need to talk to somebody. I need to get this out. Because we will continue, if we don't do that, as was mentioned, we will continue to see the men in the bars. We'll continue to see the men womanizing. We'll continue to see the men going to the parties and fighting it out. Because if you can't get it out on a normal basis, you're gonna be aggressive. You're going to fight. And we need to be able, first of all, to get it on allow Trinidad, because we are looking at our culture here, our country, allow Trinidad to know that, listen, mental health issues are not something to be considered as taboo. We need to be able to say, okay, it is okay to have a mental health issue and treat with it. And therefore, in doing that, we will have a culture where if you see somebody going by a psychologist, it's not a big thing. You don't put a question mark over their head. You don't feel and start to call them and say they're mad or something wrong with their head, right? But I think that this forum is one that we can start that conversation where we can allow men to realize that, listen, it is okay if we're not okay. Thank you.
I love that. I always say it is okay to not be okay. I wanted to add, because something that I often advocate at every opportunity that I get, if we want to normalize mental health treatment, then we need to create spaces where it is normal for someone to go to get this mental health. I keep making the point that there is enough social workers and psychologists in Trinidad and Tobago that can fit every health center in the country. Just like you go to the health center to see a doctor, the nurse, you should have a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a social worker there. From the time you normalize it, then people wouldn't have a problem in a clandestine manner going to get help behind some office somewhere. If you make it open and free and accessible to all, then once you go in the health center, ain't nobody know what you're going there for. So you could feel comfortable walking in and, dealing with your business. So if we want to really change this, we need to change our policy in the way we treat with mental health availability throughout Trinidad and Tobago. I recognize Ricardo Mitchell, and then Rice, and then Mohammed.
Yeah, hi, good evening, y'all. So I am a co-host on a local radio program, and we've had weekly discussions for years now. And last year, 10 or 12 out of 40 episodes we dedicated to mental health in varying capacities: men's, women's, children's, professional, organizational. We ran the entire gamut. The episode that got the most replay was the episode called Mental Health, Why We Don't Discuss It, emphasis on the men. There's two major components of understanding men's mental health and why addressing it collectively is an issue. The first and foremost, as evidenced by the feedback we've gotten, is that we have a gossip and pecan culture, and there's an underlying fear. It's not even underlying, but there's a dominant fear that your therapist will speak to other people about your issue. It is only when one engages the system that that fear is dispelled because of the professionalism that they meet. But prior to getting into a session, we are afraid of our business coming out because somebody always knows somebody who does tell a partner. The second major deterrent, and the first one is on men for the initial fear, but the second major deterrent is the fact that partners tend to weaponize your honesty. The gentlemen face the trauma, they express to the partner what they're dealing with, how they're feeling, what they were exposed to. And then 2 incidents later, when your partner gets upset with you, they fling it back in your face that you have expressed a vulnerability. And every progress that you've made, you've lost because now you shut down and you refuse to engage either the healing system or the honesty part, the communication part with your partner. So we have to acknowledge that the weaponizing of the vulnerability, the weaponizing of the honesty, the weaponizing of the trauma is a major deterrent to men actively seeking mental health help and developing a support system that would encourage it. Thank you.
You are 100% correct, Michelle. And I, as a clinician, I have seen it all too often, that weaponizing, where people utilize the trauma, the hurt, the pain that people would have gone through and build the courage to speak about. It was removed in one simple conversation where it came back in a very, very negative, antagonizing, condescending way. And even I want to go one step further, Ricardo. It's even when it is said, the overall behavior of the spouse changes because they see you and view you in a different light now. And so the entire dynamics of the relationship, when the man thought it would have been better or improved it, has now deteriorated. And I have seen people come into me for just that very setting. Very powerful. Thank you. Thank you. I see Rice now. Kareem, please go ahead. And then Mohammed.
Can you hear me clearly?
We are indeed hearing you.
Yeah, I concur with what Mr. Ricardo Mitchell just said there in terms of the rehashing or the weaponizing of feelings expressed or intimate moments that shouldn't be used as a weapon. I experienced that. But what I'm here to say is that my comment is actually in terms of therapy. In terms of therapy, I for one, I'm a young man who believes in therapy and how important it is for men to express themselves. But I've also realized that since I've taken that part in terms of advocating for therapy and mental health and all these different things, it's like men aren't necessarily allowed to share and express them feelings so much that when it actually happens, it's viewed as some sort of anomaly. And it reminds me, because I'm a young parent as well, right? It's like a child who's unable to say what they need or explain themselves, then they become extremely frustrated and grumpy because nobody seems to understand them. So they tend to act out, like I could relate that feeling to a baby that's being understood to me at some point along my journey as a young man, not being understood and not being allowed to speak and feeling flustered about it. And I definitely think even though women being retrained, that suggestion of women being retrained in order to allow men to speak, I still definitely think that some things are better off left in the hands of the professionals, like therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists, instead of sharing all the intimate details of your life with your partner. Definitely therapy is a go-to for a man, because your partner in your life may not be a professional and they may trigger you, so like, I don't know, I believe in therapy and psychiatry 100%, and I endorse that any day for any man. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kareem. And again, I mean, some really powerful points we're hearing here tonight, because one of the things that you're pointing to here is again, trust. Can we trust our friend, our partner, our loved one to tell them how we truly feel and allow for healing, like Dr. Niles spoke about, whether or not that is going to be allowed? And we see often it is not a thing, so men definitely is holding back. You see, go ahead, Mohammed, and then I'll jump back in.
Yeah, I just have a couple of things to say. I'll make it as quick as I could. I actually support that point where I believe is Mr. Kenneth said that learning to say thank you. I believe that is a very strong point that should have a lot of work done on, because saying thank you to a man is something that is not done. A man would come do yard work, you wouldn't say thank you. What you get for doing yard work is more yard work, as you said. For doing a good job, you get more work. I don't know how is this an answer. And the usefulness, if you are not useful as a man, your worth is automatically dropped. How useful you are is how manly you are. And I feel that is something that everybody needs to work on, because a lot of older men who, as we talk about setting in stone their behaviors, when they get older, they realize that they can't do what they used to do when they were younger, and they don't know how to express themselves. So therefore they push their families away, and they become miserable in their lives, and they don't know how to express that. And I've noticed that with family members as it comes down to the latter years in life, because they don't know how to cope with it and express.
Wow. Let me say this off the bat. I don't know this forum here. I've never spoken on this forum here, but I've never spoken on a forum dealing with men and mental health or men's health where so many men came forward and made such a great impact in the contribution. I just want to say, Carissa and team, a marvelous job. You know, I see this as a first, and so I'm really appreciative of this. And so when you look in totality about how we move forward, because I think, to me, yes, it's okay for us to say all of these things, but we have to find a way to move forward. What do we do, right? And so we must create a holistic multi-pronged approach. Yes, it sounds very macro, but at the end of the day, we have to create a multi-prong, because we cannot just do one thing and then wait for it to work and then do another. We have to be able to work with our females, our ladies, our girls. We have to be able to work with our men to get them to be emotionally aware, to get them emotionally intelligent, to get them to change from the foundation that was set. We have to reset the foundation. We have to work with our children to understand how and what man and girls and boys should look like, rather than the machismo, He-Man, She-Ra kind of scenario. We need to work with our system, whereby changing the tapestry of mental health in Trinidad and Tobago. Organizations. We're not just talking about a government changing a policy, but organization becoming mental health informed. For example, HSSC, health, wellness, and all of these things. Somewhere in the H, the health must also include mental health. HR organization must infuse in their days off mental health days. They must infuse accepting, how they call these things? Sick leave from psychologists and psychiatrists, right? Only a psychiatrist can officially write a sick leave. No, we must change the system. Our insurance agencies must change their policies to recognize mental health as legitimate and stop giving people 2% and 3% and $100 back on mental health visits. Because the craziness of the system here is that you could go up to the doctor after having a heart attack because of the stress, because of the mental illness, and they could medevac you to Miami for the heart attack. But the mere therapy that is needed to stop all of these other peripheral dangerous things, they don't treat. So we have to treat. So in order for us to normalize, in order for us to bring men's mental health to the focus, we have to make it on par with everything else. So not just government policies, but the laws should be able to be passed. The HR policies should change. The insurance policies should change. The HR sick leave mechanism should change. And so even in the church setting, we should also embrace mental health. So you're talking about a holistic multi-pronged approach in order for us to really bring about that kind of change. We need to train our health services provider to become more gender sensitive. We need to train our police service and all these other ambulatory services to become gender sensitive. Why it is when a woman goes through a difficulty, we march, but when a man goes to a police station to make a report that he was lured and raped, it becomes a laughing stock. We have to change the way we interact. We have to, in no subtle way, and I make no apologies about this, in no subtle way, we must remove unintended gender biases, construct in our home, in our schools, in our church mandir mosques, in our government offices, in our business places. We must remove the way we interact and see men and hold men in that corner. We have to create safe spaces where men can feel that warmth of expression, where men can feel that they don't have to go to a bar to hide to talk about how they feel, but to be able to speak about it in a way that is free and open and incumbent of all shame and guilt and prosecutory type of behavior. Let me give you an example real quickly. I used to cut my hair in South at one point on a Sunday evening. But when I go there, that barbershop used to be so vile. I used to say, Lord, I don't think I want to come back here because the kind of thing these men and them used to be talking about here, it used to be like, woo, child. This is not something that is good for the soul. But I used to get caught up in my phone, so I didn't used to take it on as much until one day my phone died. We know when that phone died, I started to pay attention. So I sat up and I listened. And about 10 minutes into the conversation, I said, but wait now. It's therapy, these men in therapy here, you know. These men talking about what wife does do to them, what the wife didn't say, what going on at home, how it's going on. But of course, again, we were taught how to have these kind of conversation. So we sexualize it, we cuss it down. You see me? And so what I realized that was going on there is that barbershop was a safe space where men felt as if they could talk. And the reason why I was able to determine it was true is because about an hour in the conversation, a woman brought she son and the shop got so quiet. You could hear a pin fall. So it told me that people in that shop, the men in that shop, were comfortable talking to themselves about their issues in the way they know how to speak. Why am I saying that? Because I want to create the emphasis, and I like that Dr. Nye said he started that transformation of conversation with females. But I want to create safe spaces where men can feel that power to just speak. Once we begin to look at those things from a holistic perspective, once we begin to change the paradigm in the way we see and interact with our boys, once we begin to change our system of approach in terms of mental illness, I guarantee you, we will be able to change. I guarantee you, we will be able to get our men to speak up. And once we begin to do these, you will notice that domestic violence will be on a decline. Fathers will be more inclined to be emotional with their children. Fathers will be able to train their boys in a different perspective, not just to be what society says they should be. And we could see a better society for it. So I want to say thank you for allowing me this moment. I don't know if we have any last minute questions, comments, but I want to say thank you for allowing me to delineate with you, but for the short moment. And I hope that I was able to bring some level of clarity, some points that we can all begin to use in our own individuals here as we build a better Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mr. Benjamin, you have me very emotional right now. This has been a very amazing and surprising webinar. Even I myself, I'm so happy to see so many men speaking up, even though it's a female-dominated webinar right now. I hope we could do this soon again. I think this is a great idea and it's a starting point. So I see that we have our president of the Rotary Club of Pinal and we have the ADRR. So I would like to ask Mr. Bujun and then Ms. Thompson, if you can give a little word or two on what you think and how you feel the webinar went. Mr. VJ?
Thanks, Carissa. So good night to all. Good night to Mr.
night.
Benjamin. I thought it went well, seeing that, this is like one of the first webinar or anything. I mean, I've been to mental health conferences and things that they talk about in terms of like, but very rare we talk about men's mental health. And what really I would take back is that how mental health leads to, you was given the example as to, coping mechanism and alcohol, and these things leads to physical your health in terms of, because people think I know the gym rats, as we would call, and they're all about physical health, but we could see how mental health is much more important and it could actually affect your physical health. So thank you for shedding the light on that, and not just that, but everything else we discussed. And I absorbed a lot. So thanks again, and good job to you. Thanks again. Thanks, Carissa.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Thompson?
Good night, everyone. That was such a powerful and enriching conversation. So thank you, Mr. Benjamin, for taking the time to come forward. And as you said, I've never seen a forum such as this where so many men come forward and share their experiences, share their insights, share their thoughts on men's mental health. So I thought that it was great, Carissa. Thanks for having me here again, and thanks for hosting such a session. This was excellent. And we really need to work on changing the language and changing our behaviors and how we interact with men from all ages, because as you said, we use humor to cover it, and I see it in my peer group so often. You just say, it's just a laugh, it's obvious, I'm going to take a drink and let me just breeze this off. You're not dealing with the issue, but we're using humor and a good time to, deflect and to bypass it so that we can move on with our lives. But you're not really dealing with the traumas. So this was such a great session. And also something I never really thought about in a grander scheme is organizational policy. So we talk about individual change and governmental policy, but things like insurance coverage, like how much benefit they pay towards, therapy visits and things like that. I've never really thought about so much, especially coming from the insurance industry. So that's definitely something that I'm going to take back to my employer so that they could review how much benefit they allow for those types of sessions. So thank you again. This was an excellent session, and I look forward to many, many more throughout the Rotary year.
Thank you. Mr. Benjamin, do you think that maybe we can do a bigger project like this in the future? And we could include Dr. Niles. I'm seeing my lecturer from USC in my master's in counseling psych. We could have a bigger session on men's mental health.
Just call on me, and once my time permits, definitely I will be there. I have no challenge.
Oh, that's who you are.
Yeah.
Hi, Carissa.
Yes, Dr. Niles. It's me. Hi.
I was trying to hide, but I couldn't hide.
Well, unfortunately, we have come to the end. It was a very powerful session, and I wish we could have gone on a little bit more. But I'd really like to thank Mr. Benjamin from the bottom of my heart. This has been a very eye-opening webinar. Thank you so much for being here. I'd like to thank Mr. VJ Bujun from the Rotary Club of Pinal, the president, for coming and enjoying our session, as well as the ADRR, Ms. Thompson, thank you. And to everybody who would have come and interacted and took in the information, thank you so much for being here. Before you all leave, we have a post-webinar survey on the chat. I think Ms. Sergio will have put it on the chat. Please, I encourage you to fill it out Also, we have another webinar coming up soon. Look out on our socials for it, for the tentative date. We want to do it on anxiety and depression. So guys, before you all leave, thank you each and every one of you again for being here tonight, and fill out our post-webinar survey so we can, gauge how you would have learned from the webinar. Thank you again, Mr. Hanif.
What's ADRR?
The ADRR in Rotaract is the assistant.
Oh, Rotaract. Yeah, well, I know all this. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Then.
All right. So I'll give you all a few minutes to get the link from Candy on the chat, and you can leave as soon as you finish. Thank you all so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Carissa?
Hi, yes.
Yeah, so it's 5:15 in the morning. Some of our members from the other side of the
India.
world join us at this time, so we have to, recognize them as well.
Yes, I am sorry, I didn't know. Thank you guys so much. I know it was a very early webinar, but we really appreciate